Supposedly, Xbox is halting funding third parties to be part of Game Pass. To me, this tells me she might actually be considering a radical change to the business model of Game Pass, which it clearly needs. Welcome to Broken Silicon, a gaming hardware podcast. I am your host, Tom. This episode's lead sponsors are JLC PCB, where you can get 6-layer PCBs for $30 off through the link below. And then also cdkeyoffer.com, where you can get Windows 11 Professional for just $24 with offer code Broken Silicon. Dan, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm good. I will say this is the tribute part of the year in Nashville. And by that, I mean, as I've explained to many of my family members who live up north in Wisconsin and Minnesota, that the reason I live in Nashville is they're like, isn't it hotter? It's like, well, really, it's like 7 months of the year, our fall weather, like just all fall weather for 7 months. Mm-hmm. Then 2 or 3 months of the year, I guess I would say then like 3 months of the year are the same heat actually as some of the like Minnesota. But there is 2 months where you get a couple weeks where it gets exceedingly hot, and that is where the due is paid. You must pay with at least 1 week of 100-degree weather in Nashville, if not more. Really 3 weeks probably. And once you have paid the tribute, you get fall weather all year. But we're definitely in it right now, the heat wave here. And I think a heat wave that's the entire top half of the Earth right now.
Well,
hemisphere is like all over Europe as well. Carbon Cry was saying that you had to like lay down for an hour just to like not get hot in his apartment or something while he was working before he worked on the script.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's supposed to be like 90s all week next week, and
in Wisconsin.
And yeah, I've been hearing crazy things out of France right now. So to any French fans of the show, especially, I hope you all are doing well.
Yeah, because some of the stuff that I've been told from Carbon Cry, the Czech Republic, it's 95. It's the same temperature in Paris as it is in Nashville. That's really bad. I mean, it's survivable, but a lot of them don't have air conditioning, and that's
a lot.
That's where it gets beyond us making fun of them, right? Like, I'll be honest, Europeans, when I see like an English road melting at 80 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm like, you think it might get to 80F once, but this is not that. This is actually very serious, and we hope everybody is safe.
Yeah, to me, like the one that I came off as a bit funny, and I'm sure English fans of the show will be like, hey, but it was like probably 3 or 4 years ago when I think like a cold snap hit England, and it was like it's been getting to 30 degrees for every day for an entire week, and it's like, oh, okay.
Well, we get that at least in Nashville every year too. So like, what are you?
But yeah, I mean, like, 95 degrees, especially when at night it doesn't get below like it's like stays in like the 80s and 90s is when temperatures can really get dangerous because your body doesn't have time to cool off. Yeah,
and recover. Yeah. So. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's really hot here where I am. It's hot where Dan is. It's hot where everyone is in the upper half of the earth. So I don't know. Be safe. And this is beyond the cheap jokes Americans make sometimes. Yes. This actually is serious. I actually couldn't believe how hot Carbon Cry said it was in the Czech Republic. I'm like, again, it's not 80 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm like, really? That much there? Jesus.
Oh, yeah. I hope you're doing well, Carbon Cry.
He's all right, it seems. Could be worse. All right. First, let's get to one quick correction here. Techno writes in. It says the Mac Mini is $799 with 16 gigabytes of RAM, by the way. When you were talking about this compared to the Steam machine, you mentioned 24 gigabytes. That is a flat 1,000. Fair correction. Although, again, technically, same amount of RAM as a Steam machine. $50 less.
Yes.
Now, this is where people type in all caps. Valve is a smaller company. Okay, yes, this isn't G-Skill we're talking about. Valve, which we'll get to why I made that comparison, but this is a smaller company than Apple. But still, that is more
substantially smaller. Most companies are substantially smaller.
Yes,
than Apple.
Certainly one would say on average companies are smaller than Apple. But still, I think this goes to show when people say Apple pricing, I often go, yeah, but it's usually actually not the worst price performance. It's just you don't want to pay that much for what's in that package because you just want pure gaming performance or something, and they offer some unified memory or something else really fancy for the price. This is still at that level of pricing. I think we should all admit. Again, and like we just put out a die shrink where we talk for really an entire Broken Silicon episode about how different ways people Valve could have handled the Steam Machines launch. And again, not hindsight 2020, after prices went up. And we had like dozens of almost like 100 comments submitted actually for the Moore's Law is Dead patrons about what they would have done. There are a lot of interesting creative submissions. I actually do really, really recommend people check that out if they haven't yet, or join the Patreon, which you get access to this one at the lowest $1 tier if you want to listen to it, just to hear the creative things people propose. But a point you make in that episode is, well, okay, we can talk about how we got here, but at the end of the day, we're here. And so when it comes to price performance, let's just be honest about why you would get this device, because it is not for price performance. It doesn't matter how it got to a bad price. You shouldn't be recommending this for gaming price performance. So unless you're someone that thinks Apple has really good gaming price performance.
Yeah.
But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. We did not want to start with, well, half of our stories today are about price increases. I wanted to start with at least one story that was a positive one. And so let's get right into this with story number 1. AMD releases FSR 4.1 to RDNA 3, and it already kind of works on 3.5, but RDNA 2 is going to require more work. Quoting first from Tweaktown before going to the write-up. Earlier today, AMD released AMD Software Adrenaline Edition 26.6.2 for Radeon GPUs, which added FSR 4.1 upscaling support to the RDNA 3-powered Radeon Arc 7000 series graphics cards for desktop. This new version is limited, though, to the RDNA 3 desktop GPUs, at least for now, officially. Although it turns out that the new FSR 4.1 DLL leaked a little early via Valve and Proton experimental channel for SteamOS and Linux, of all places. And like the previous version, when paired with OptiScaler tool to force it on, it can run on systems and configurations that aren't desktop RDNA 3 GPUs. In fact, according to this thread over on Reddit, some users are getting it to run just fine on RDNA 3.5. So, yep, finally, FSR 4 is out for GPUs that have not been blessed with matrix math acceleration, or, well, at least the RDNA 3 desktop ones. And, well, it seems to indeed be full FSR 4 running on RDNA 3, a fully competitive with DLSS, one of the latest DLSS's, top-tier machine learning upscaler. And it even seems to be better than the earlier hacky options as well, as most who experience both conclude that the official release of FSR 4.1 has better image quality than what was tested with hacked implementations. In fact, testing by Computerbase found that in quality mode, RDNA 3 also doesn't get much more of a performance hit compared to using FSR 3.1, although this is not true in performance mode, where it does notably perform worse on RDNA 3 compared to RDNA 4. Although that goes only for RDNA 3. It seems that AMD has indeed excluded 3.5 from the initial release. Fortunately, just like the FSR 4 DLL leak, allowing people using it with older Radeon GPUs, the 4.1 DLL is also leaked. But as users online, including friend of the channel Fabio of Ancient Gameplays, found out, RDNA 3.5 and 2 have severe issues with the current iteration if forced, especially in performance and ultra performance presets for FSR. In particular, shadows and translucencies produce noticeable, ugly shimmering. Interestingly similar, though, in this way to the old DLL leak for RDNA 2. This shows that in reality, FSR 4 on RDNA 3 is not as easy to port as people thought with the hacking. The final version is better than the hacked version. There was extra effort AMD put into it, and is probably why AMD was hesitant to do it. Although after being bullied online, they sure got to it pretty quickly, didn't they? And well, here it is. It's on desktop RDNA 3, and it works very well. But they still need to get it working on 3.5 and RDNA 2, although, again, that extra time seems like it actually is necessary. It is not arbitrary. Oh, and so why didn't they say all of this in the first place? Why didn't they message that it would come, but that it would take time and that it would work better? Nobody knows. It seems like actually AMD had legitimate reasons for having this take a while to come out. If only they would have just been honest about that and gotten proper praise.
Yep. As usual, AMD is really weirdly bad at communicating to a confusing degree because, like, uh, this is to me like the release of this is really validates AMD's case for why it took so long, and I think it's one of the better like the outcomes for what it's officially supported on is one of the better outcomes. Where like I was half expecting something with FSR on RDNA 3 to be like functional, but not nearly as good as what you would get with RDNA 4. And what you get is, I mean, not quite as good as RDNA 4. But the RDNA 3 version of FSR 4 is, I would say it offers you a comparable level of performance or relative performance compared to RDNA 4. And if that would have been communicated earlier on, I think this entire round of what the hell is going on with with FSR4 would have been not necessary. I haven't personally checked out been able to check out really RDNA 4 yet, but yeah, I'm excited to give it a go. I'll probably be playing around with it a decent bit this week just to see what my own opinions are on it based on more than just like looking at it from what reviewers have said so far. But what they show is obviously RDNA 4 I think in certain scenarios looks a lot better, and that carries over to RDNA 3 implementation of it. And yeah, worth the wait. It's not like a semi-borked version of FSR 4. It's just fully functional, it seems, with albeit worse relative performance than for RDNA 4's version of it. But not that much worse.
No, not that much worse. I was actually surprised. Like, if you're going to ask me what I expected, and I'm sure people did, and it's probably in some broken silicon a dozen times because people probably ask me a lot what I expect. I believe what I've been saying is I expect, like, if RDNA 4 gets a 30% boost from FSR 4, RDNA 3, like the stronger ones, gets a 20%, weaker cards get 15% or something. And that's not what we found. And I also would have said I expect one or two facets of its quality, whether it's ghosting, shimmering, something with the calculation just doesn't look quite as good. From what we can tell, it looks just as good. And just looking here at Computer Base, I have it pulled up. What in FSR 4.1 turned on the 7900 XTX, which I would say is pretty much exactly equivalent unless ray tracing's onto a 9070 XT. It's like 52.6 frames per second. And the 9070 XT gets 56.5 frames. So that's like less than a 10% different. That's pretty good considering the exact same quality. But surprisingly, what I also would have expected is, well, if one is better than the other, then maybe you turn on performance mode, or you more often do that. Not really the case, actually, with the 7900 XTX. It starts to lose a little bit more there. Although, again, not real, it's still not useless, but you can see that is where you get over a 10% performance deficit in performance mode. So it's really the opposite of what we thought would happen in that regard. But in general, I think this is kind of just a home run. And yeah, I plan to test. Really, I'm not. What I would want to test is Strix Halo. Because that for me is really the one that needs it. And that will be very interesting if I boot up Battlefield and now I'm really, instead of doing like 1080p, 120, 1440p, 60 or 90, I'm like, oh, I can just do 1440p or even 1800p, with FSR on now at 120 locked. We'll see if we get that.
Yeah. And I'm really hoping that this is the official support is an omen for what's to come for RDNA 3.5, because just to parrot what we've said before, I think FSR 4 working on RDNA 3.5 is very important to AMD's strategy, because they're going to be stuck on RDNA 3.5 for a long time.
Yeah, I think in 2 months they launched Gorgon Halo with 192 gigabytes of RAM, unified in probably $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 laptops. I know a lot of those will be bought for AI, but some of them will not be, and you cannot tell people to get a laptop that premium. Sorry, you don't get the latest FSR. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, And that's where AMD always seems to fall short, is they can't help but screw up one aspect of every launch. It seems like they can't get the messaging right. If the messaging right, maybe some implementation looks weird. It takes way too long for them to implement a feature. And here, if there would have just been some clarity, like it's going to take 6 months, but it's going to be a comparable experience, relative experience, going using RDNA 3 with FSR 4 once we initially support it. Just like try to message that rather than do this.
And I think if they would have said RDNA 2 will also be covered, they would have gotten away with it because so many people still use RDNA 2. And I mean, there were interviews where AMD was like, maybe 3, don't know about 2. And now it turns out they're going to do 2. From the beginning, they're like, give us 6 months. It'll be as good as it is on RDNA 4. It'll even be on RDNA 2. We would have all said, oh, okay. And people would have bought RDNA 3 knowing, and 6, I don't really need it now. These cards are powerful. I need it for future games, and it'll support it. So I'm just going to be unafraid to get RDNA 3, but that's not what happened.
Yeah, and frankly, just with AMD, like I think there's probably a bit of an expectation at this point that maybe AMD could play into, because people, I think, kind of expect software support to be a little bit slower than it should be from AMD. So maybe if you just message actual expectations, like, yeah, it's going to come at that type of clip that you're used to seeing from us, but trust us, it will be worth the wait once it comes out.
Mm-hmm. Now, Dan, something that I want to ask you is, right, I have a 4090. I have a 9070 XT actually lit up behind me there. I was never really going to be, I was never, my backup cards, I think a 4060. I was like, although I technically have 2 backup cards now. Like, I was never someone really that worried about FSR 4 except for Strix Halo, which, speaking for myself, when I got my Strix Halo laptop almost a year ago, I was like, yeah, I assume this is going to get FSR 4, and that's why I'm unafraid to get it. And then it sounded like they might not port it, and I went, well, I mean, look, I'm usually using it for work, and if I'm gaming on a small screen, FSR 3.1, I think, kind of looks fine on an airplane ride. This isn't my primary gaming device. It wasn't a big deal, but it pissed me off a little bit there, actually. A decent amount. Not a little, a decent amount. Not enough for me to, like, regret getting Strix Halo, but it did piss me off. You, though, your main desktop has a 7900 XTX, 24 gigabyte. You've been sitting here, I think, with you assuming, since you bought it, like, yeah, of course this will get the latest FSR. Why would it not? Walk us through your emotions and your feelings from, like, do you remember how you felt when you got the 7900 XX? You just assumed it would get everything, then how you felt when they said it would, then it wouldn't, then it would again?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly just annoyance, because like I think where AMD struggles, and where in the future I might more consider like jumping over to NVIDIA the next time I get a new card, is just the inconsistent messaging and levels of support that you get from AMD. Because like RDNA 4, I think has really done a lot of like work to close like the perceived the value gap that AMD and NVIDIA offer.
The value per frame gap. Like, you also get this ray tracing, the software support. It's not just about the frame rate. Yeah.
Like, I mean, every tech reviewer is a little different with their math, or with like what they say. Like, I think Hardware Unboxed in their reviews like would generally say like before RDNA 4, they kind of view it as like a 15% value gap, and now it's probably closer to like a little under 10%.
So almost negligible.
Yeah, but when you get when you have AMD's like really mixed messaging like this, and the really slow implementation of support, it makes you question even like what RDNA 4 will look like going into the future, because I mean, they can't support like the latest features on their high-end devices. I should say their enthusiast tier devices, even going in a generation forward, or at least it's not apparent that they're going to. And especially in a kind of weird generation like RDNA 4 is, where in some ways it's a lot better than RDNA 3, but they didn't improve raster performance this generation with RDNA 4. Sorry, I should have said RDNA 4 the first time too. But they didn't really improve. They didn't improve performance with RDNA 4. Their top card with RDNA 4 has less RAM than their top card from last generation. So in some ways, I do think there should almost be an expectation that the 7900 XTX is still their enthusiast tier card, and without having that support immediately, or with very inconsistent messaging about what software support it's going to get going forward, like makes you question, like I don't know, what will RDNA 5 look like? What will they be able to deliver on software features at any point? Will RDNA 4 get continued software support? And I do think it does make me like at a certain point, I would be more open to jumping over to NVIDIA if they really did offer like a killer generation next time around,
Like a Pascal generation.
Yeah.
Not necessarily better price performance, but close enough, to what AMD had at the time compared to what we see these days. So I guess what you're saying is, am I wrong? When you bought the 7900 XTX, yeah, you just assumed it would get the latest software features for the next 5-10 years. It didn't, and it made you question everything. And while you're happy to get it now, you're still going, well, the fact that they even considered not doing it and we had to bully them online tells me that I should still be wary unless RDNA 5 comes out and they just announce everything back to RDNA 2 still gets support.
Yeah, and just especially in a period like this where they went from releasing an enthusiast tier graphics card to only having mid-range graphics cards the next generation. I think when you have a kind of wonky looking launch like that, you want to continue providing strong support towards your previous enthusiast tier card, because in a lot of ways it's still the best card you're selling.
And they're not going to upgrade. It's not like, and this is maybe shitty to say, but it's not like, well, if I can't get FSR 4, the 7900 XTX person can upgrade to the 9090 XT and then they still get the newest features. You're not giving me any option. You're basically saying side grade or just deal with worse support than a mid-range card that came out. What kind of a strategy is that?
Yeah,
to
exactly.
keep your people on side.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I guess this is the thanks for, I don't know, supporting or buying our hardware for longer than previous people have.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the final thing I'd want to discuss when it comes to this development, that not only is it coming out, it came out faster than expected, even though they said it was hard to do after we bullied them. Again, I suspect they could have done this months ago, by the way. But anyways, does this change our recommendations? Because it was kind of a thing where I'm like, oh, I wouldn't get a 7900 XTX unless it was $100 cheaper than a 9070 XT, even with the extra RAM. I'm sorry, like one of them is better at ray tracing and FSR. And the 7900 XT even more so. But now that's changed. The funny thing is, when I just checked Newegg, and again, I haven't checked everywhere online, I kind of just flipped around YouTube shopping as well, Google shopping as well. And from what I can tell, though, this really would have been more useful to price hunters about 6 months ago, because now it's like, like a 7900 XT I'm seeing here is $670, 9070 XT $730. I mean, I think I'd still probably pay the extra.
Wait, what did you say the 7900 XT was again?
$670. So okay. It's like an extra $60, an extra almost exactly 10% to go from a 7900 XT, not the XTX. You get 4 gigabytes more RAM, substantially worse ray tracing, similar FSR support now. I'd still say get the 9070 XT.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy equation. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing this therefore it does for Radeon right now in terms of what changes is, once again, we can full-heartedly recommend Gorgon and Strix products, and now even maybe Hawkpoint products and budget laptops, because they all get FSR 4 support. And then I think the 7600 XT is sometimes not the best price now. Like, it's finally getting sold out and being fully replaced by the Navi 44 products. But if you saw a used 7600 XT 16 gigabyte for like $200, $250, I think you're still in this realm where you're like, okay. Although do keep in mind, the 9060 XT is like 40-50% faster than the 7600 XT. So if you see one for $300, you're not really getting better price performance unless the 9060 XT is over 400. And even then, are you really one is better ray tracing? So it's still a matter of a fact where I think the biggest deal is to the budget products from the previous gen. But do keep in mind those should be budget products by now. Do not see FSR 4 come to RDNA 3 and go, yay, 7600 XT is good for 350. If a 9060 XT, which it usually is like just over 400. I think it makes it safe to buy RDNA 3, but don't forget RDNA 4 is quite a bit better per compute unit.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking across the board, I think RDNA 4 you would recommend most of the time over RDNA 3, unless like RDNA 3 you're getting a complete bargain for. But yeah, I mean, it also is good for people that have been on the 7600 XT for a while. It's getting a little bit long in the tooth, probably, despite what some aspiring hardware companies want you to believe. But yeah, at least something like a 7600 XT.
We'll get to the aspiring hardware company next door. Yes, I see what you're saying.
At least that the 7600 XT or 7600, will last a little bit longer if you're somebody that, buys a low or mid-range GPU every like few generations rather than the enthusiasts that upgrade like every other generation.
Yeah, and I guess the only final thing to say about this is I find it interesting. RDNA 3.5 doesn't run quite as well. I guess I don't know what everyone's tested. I haven't looked through the Reddit threads. Like, are these people just testing Strix Point and being like, it's not as fast? It's like, well, yeah, Strix Point doesn't even have infinity cache. No surprise there. Or they tested Strix Halo and they're finding it's notably worse in the scaling compared to like a 9060 or something. I don't know. But I would say if it is, it's probably just because they haven't literally done that extra little bit to the metal program, the software. And then for so I wouldn't be too worried, read into that too much. But for RDNA 2, I'm still curious what's going to happen. I mean, we saw a hacked FSR 4 in some games require performance mode to give you a boost, but still be preferable to 3.1 on the Steam Deck. And then in other situations, it just seemed to be 3.1 performance. I am curious to see how close RDNA 2 is, because if the difference is just between 3 and 4 is the difference between the scaling of 2 and 3, that would make sense. But I'd be fascinated if they got it to work like 95% as well as RDNA 3 does. We'll see though.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a big expectation for that, but RDNA 2, at least AMD is a little off the hook, or I don't think there's that much pressure for how well it performs. Like I think on 6-year-old hardware, it's just like the fact that it benefits you at all is probably seen as a plus for people that are still like on a 6800 XT. I am very a little bit anxious, I guess, to see what RDNA 3.5 performance ends up looking like with FSR 4, because I think nailing FSR 4 on or 4.1 on RDNA 3.5 is really important, and what we have right now isn't great on that, but hopefully that's just because it's a hacked version of the software.
All right, we tried to give you guys some candy. Let's get into the depths of despair with the first one of the sadder stories, at least from my perspective, with story number 2. This piece of content is brought to you by JLC PCB. Innovation starts with an idea, and JLC PCB helps you bring your ideas to life. They handle every step with precision, speed, and at a reasonable cost, especially when it comes to their 6-layer PCBs. On that last point, their 6-layer PCBs allow fast, clean routing and avoid the struggle of squeezing signals onto their usual 2 or 4-layer boards. More routing means more freedom and faster development, fewer redesigns, and therefore quicker project completions. Spend less time fighting routing limits and more time building the actual projects. And 6-layer PCBs are usually expensive, but JLC PCB offers one of the most affordable industry prices. So whether you're a maker, an engineer, or a global hardware company, JLC PCB empowers you to turn your ideas into a reality faster and smarter. Support Moore's Law is dead through the link below. Yes, just clicking on the link below helps the channel a ton, but obviously if you need their services, you can also get a really great price on 6-layer PCBs as well if you follow the directions and use the offer codes and coupons below. So please support Moore's Law is dead at JLC PCB today. Valve launches Steam Machine with bad performance and absurd price, then teases Steam Deck 2. Quoting first from Valve, then XDA, then the write-up. Valve, we felt like we had a good understanding of how those costs might change over time when we first started sourcing them for Steam Machine back in 2023. And then XDA, that's basically all Valve's saying is they thought they understood, they don't. XDA, quoting, one person has tried to match the original specs as closely as possible and managed to make something in a similar form factor to the Steam Machine through 3D printing case. The end product was a cool $700. And I want to say this too, because I've seen this person basically act like he's getting death threats online or something. And like, he's like, oh, it's, the Steam Machine's still great. I don't mean to. This person, I won't say their name because they probably don't want me to if they're already worried about what people are saying on Twitter, it seems. But someone put together actually a really interesting ITX build. I think we have pictures of it for Gerard to put on screen here, where they 3D printed a case where that's small, compact, and they have a power supply like this, and then the motherboard outputs, and then the GPU. And yeah, they had a 3D printed case, and I saw a lot of people saying like, that's not fair. They had a 3D printed case. I'm like, okay, so yes, there's some extra cost there if you're building this at home. Sure, this is still wildly below $1,050, though. This is $700. But if he can 3D print a case for probably like $5 or something, yes, he needed the 3D printer. That still means it would have been cheaper for Valve to just find a mass production way to make this case in this shape instead of the shape they did. This person found a cheaper way to get to a form factor like the Steam Machine using 3D printing. Certainly, there's a better mass manufacturing way to do this, and he did it for $700. I'm sorry, this just proves any of the people just dying on the form factor hill. This proves if Valve put thought into it, they could have made this form factor for substantially less money than now. If some guy in his office can do it, but sorry. Anyways, though.
Well, yeah, and just a quick note on that, just not to turn this into another episode of us just being annoyed about the defenses of the Steam Machine. Like it is turned into a weird defense. Like, and I think even like Hardware Unboxed discussed this a little bit, where it's like, discussing, they were talking about this, about the fact that it's 4 liters. And some people online like being really, really dedicated to the fact that it's 4 liters. And it's like, why do you care so much about this, about like any competitor or any PC being 4 liters? Is it just because the Steam Machine happens to be 4 liters? Like,
why not 3?
Yeah.
They're smaller desktops. Or
why not 5? Like, does that functionally make any major difference than 3 liters? Like, it really doesn't. It's just attaching arbitrary specifications that the Steam Machine happens to hit.
So what's the arbitrary liters, by the way? Like, what is
4.
it? 4? Is it exactly 4 or what is it?
I don't remember the exact
because size, I'm looking here at a Minis forum mini PC that is 3.8 liters as a 5060, a 12-core Ryzen 9 8000 series CPU. Yes, 8000, not 7. And I believe 32 gigabytes of RAM. Now, this is 1440, but this is putting it right up against the price of the 2 terabyte Steam Machine. And this comes with a lot faster GPU, double the RAM, less storage. But it's like, so clearly this company smaller than Valve was able to also make something stronger for the same price in a smaller form factor. So even if your argument is form factor, get this Minis forum.
Well, then I'll say, Tom, that I have an entertainment system where I want to put my new mini PC that the airflow is ideal for exactly 4 liters. So 3.8 just won't cut it.
Yeah, and actually, I'll put a link in the description on the sponsored place for this Minis Forum one. Since I'm talking about them, I should probably just put their sponsorship in this video as well. But find that there. There you go. I mean, it's $1,440. I know that's $400 more than the Steam Machine. It does have a smaller, or similar, at least, I don't know what the exact liters is, the Steam Machine case. 16 cores. By the way, they're full cores. They're not just 2 classic cores and then 4 little 3 gigahertz, 2.5 gigahertz cores. And double the RAM. It's easily upgradable, more easily to upgrade. My girlfriend has it. So, like, again, this argument, if you have $1,050, you probably have the money for this. And this, I believe you can upgrade the GPU actually as well. It is a low-profile 5060. So it's not the easiest thing to do, but you can upgrade this, double the cores, double the RAM, Same price as the 2 terabyte or similar price to the 2 terabyte Steam machine. I mean, come on, guys. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Let me get to the write-up. Let me see here. Meanwhile, another highly anticipated, long-delayed launch hasn't even achieved the modest excitement of AMD's FSR 4.1. And in the case of the Steam machine, it all boils down to price. Valve, a billion-dollar corporation with more than that, I'm sure, we don't know exactly, with more cash than sense, was unable to get RAM access better than a company like G.Skill that's 100 times smaller, as outlined in posts on Twitter. And the result is, as I explained in great length, there simply was no way to offer this entry-level gaming PC for less than $1,050. Yep, no way, according to them, even though we just showed you an example of something way stronger for similar pricing. Sure, there is little sense crying over the spilt milk that is Valve disastrous component procurement, but even then, why not sell kits without RAM? Why not launch a small volume amount at a subsidized cost and restock modestly when you can? Those are just things they could have done very late in the process too. They didn't need a crystal ball. And frankly, people really should be angry here. Valve took all the credit for Steam, for Steam Deck, and for their work on Linux. And then they hyped up the community that they were going to continue these successes by entering the console space, and that this device will be a 4K 60 gaming console that will be priced to spread PC gaming to those, make it more accessible, and price it similarly to entry-level PCs. They failed on all fronts. They now say it's a 1080p 60 console. They now have priced it vastly out of the realm where people will be able to be more accessibly getting into PC. And if you do buy something for a similar price as Steam machine, you get double the performance. And even as I demonstrated on Twitter, you'd even include a controller in the build for less money. So let's be clear. Valve really has no excuse here. Not when randos can build equivalent machines for $700 despite current RAM prices, or when a French eShop can offer a 8400F with a 9060 XT, both much stronger than the GPU and CPU of the Steam machine, for the same price as the Steam machine. By the way, that means they are profiting on it at this French eShop as well. They are profiting on it.
No, that's a charity, Tom.
I mean, what will happen then when Asus, MSI, Lenovo, and more move into the space? And why did they care about making a fat profit on each console sold when shipping manifests suggest they will launch with less consoles than Sony sells PS5s in an afternoon? Why let this overshadow SteamOS opening up? Only Valve knows. Yet amongst this bad press, they decided to also overshadow teasing Steam Deck 2, which is a final thing I want to, there's a world where this week, the main things we talk about are you can put SteamOS on everything. Yay. Steam Deck 2 is coming. FSR 4.1 works on all devices and came out early. And instead, just this thing has sucked in all of the oxygen, and good stories are being overshadowed by a bad story. I really think this is, like I predicted, bungling up their mind share. They should be teeing up Steam Deck 2 right now. They should be getting people excited that imagine if they just launched a Steam controller and now you can put SteamOS on anything and the controller can turn it on remotely. Like, imagine if they did that. That's what we would be talking about. And yet they allowed a bad console launch to unnecessarily cloud the news cycle. And this didn't have to happen. Again, Gerard can put it on screen. There's a Verge article where when people break down the weight of the Steam machines that have just been shipped in, it seems like they're going to launch with, I think you estimated, Dan, 15,000. I saw Carrie Nosugata say 20,000. So let's just call it 10 to 20,000 or something like that. Like, that is, and I actually did the math. Sony probably sells that many in an afternoon on a good day. Yeah, this is negligible. They were not going to lose any. They're not going to make any money on this. They make $17 billion a year. This is nothing. All this could ever be was good or bad PR that propels SteamOS or hurts SteamOS mindshare. This has hurt it. And I think that's what people don't get. I'm mad because at Steam Machine, because I want this to succeed. I want there to be more competition against Windows. And a good launch of a console, even at low volume, is a proof of concept. That's all Steam Machine is. I see people in the comments, it's just a proof of concept. Well, I've heard a lot of people say the concept sucks. I don't want anything from Valve anymore. I'm not even interested in the Steam Deck 2 anymore. People are saying that in my comment section and all over Twitter. I'm not interested in the Steam Deck 2 anymore. If this is a proof of concept, the proof of concept has to prove the concept that this can work, and it didn't. And again, we should be talking about SteamOS, the Steam controller, all of these great things. The fact that FSR 4.1 is officially going to come to the Steam Deck, that's really cool. Instead, we are talking about Valve seemingly make it look like their initiatives will not work, but I think they can, and this was avoidable.
Yeah, especially when if this launched at a more competitive price, so I would say like a bit more expensive than a base PS5 would be like the acceptable price in my mind, because you're getting a desktop that's worse performance, but I guess it's still a desktop. You can throw Windows on it if you want to. If it had that, some of the things like that we didn't even really talk about would stand out less like sore thumbs to me, which I'm surprised it's not getting talked about more, honestly. Like, there are some aspects of SteamOS that do seem not like fundamentally broken, but like you could have put your best foot forward a little bit more on this, Valve, where like it's like automatically boots everything into 1080p when you're in big picture mode. There's some like weird issues with SteamOS because SteamOS was built around the Steam Deck, and they haven't made Steam, and that's caused some like weird software issues when on certain features with the Steam machine. Like, if you didn't have those weird teething issues too, like I don't know, this price would seem a little bit less absurd. But it's like you're not even putting like your best foot forward, like with the feasibly, like, or at this point feasibly, like the only good thing I think you could see coming out of this is the fact that like this is the soft or like beta launch of SteamOS for desktops. And what they showed is like this is a kind of this is a free competitor to Windows, and it's free because like yeah, it doesn't quite work. Like, it works, but it's not quite there yet. And I don't know. It is just really disappointing that Valve, like you said, kind of let a very small launch overshadow literally every
tiny, minuscule, less like, consoles sold than Sony sells in a day.
Like, yeah, 15,000. Like, they could sell this at cost and just or at a slight loss and just eat it and use this as an advertising opportunity. Or I guess the alternative is this is them selling it at cost, like they seem to be insisting it is or suggesting it is. And
it's not. They're making at least a 30% profit.
Then Valve or like, is it gross incompetence, or is it like, oh, little me, Valve, we could never do anything wrong. We promise we're not trying to make a profit on this. Like, it is weird. Like, just seeing them try to justify these prices over,
have their cake and eat it too. Like, if you just come out and you say, look, we're going to profit on it, and I do believe this is what's going on. And I've seen other analysts behind the scenes that I've talked to. They've said this independent to me, and I'm like, that's what I'm thinking. They're like, they make a 30% cut on every game made, and they're going, we need to make at least a 30% cut on everything we make. Otherwise, it make no sense. And that's just not how this works. Like, Sony wants to make all their money on software, some money on PSVR 2, and sell at cost on PS5. Different products should have different pricing structures, and they seem to have insisted on an at least 30% profit margin. Yes, that's after RAM prices going up. I think throw 30% or 40% profit margin on top. I do believe that. The math suggests it, everybody. And I don't know why, if they're only going to sell. And again, I actually did the math. 20 million consoles a year divided by 365 is like 50,000 something consoles sold a day by Sony. Even just 10 million consoles a year, which is on average not what Sony does. You're looking at 27,000 consoles sold. That means like every half day is a Steam machine launch for Sony, which is crazy to realize the volume there. So this is nothing. This is negligible volume. And they make 17 billion a year, I think they said Steam has in gross revenue. I think that's half of what Sony is. So half the revenue Sony makes, and they're selling half of what Sony sells in consoles in a day. I know Valve's smaller than Sony, but actually in revenue compared to PlayStation, they're the same magnitude. Sony's maybe twice as big. They're not 10 times bigger. Like, this really could have been much bigger, or again, it was all for PR. Sorry, I'm ranting now.
Yeah, I and just like, I think on the whole, like, big profit thing that like has been a discussion online, as Valve insists this is just market conditions that are making them increase the price or have it be this expensive. Like, it's very evident they're trying to make a large profit off of it, in my mind. Like, just if you look at the price differential between the 2 terabyte and the 500 gigabyte models of this, where it's like, it is completely unjustifiable that the 2 terabyte model is what, $200 more, this
Oh,
is just.
I think it's more. Well, no, you're right. It is. But again, I think that might be because they're also overpaying for those tiny SSDs. So actually, Dan, in that case, I'm not so sure.
Okay. But I don't know. I guess it goes back to the whole, are they really stupid about sourcing parts, or are they making money hand over fist on
Could be both.
these things? It could be both.
That's the thing. The price is so high. I really believe it's both. If they were bad at sourcing parts but wanted to sell it at cost, I still think it's like $750, $800. It's demonstrated. Guys, if someone can build it themselves for $750, which I've done it, someone else demonstrated it. It doesn't even need to be the 3D printed one. And the 3D printed one is a case that's the same size. Like, that demonstrates like there's no way they can be paying more than us buying it ourselves. It's impossible for that to be true. So they're bad and they charge a huge profit.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize, like, you don't have to like do bargain hunting or looking for the best deals on anything. No,
I didn't try that. I spent 5 minutes.
or like, you can go on a PC part picker and just be like, what is the directly comparable part, or something that performs better, but for whatever reason in this market is a little bit cheaper. I guess that's the caveat I'll add. In the build I made in 5 seconds, I think I put a slightly higher model CPU because for whatever reason it's cheaper. And it came out like $250 cheaper than the Steam machine. And it would be a stronger gaming PC than the Steam machine. It's not like I'm like, oh, it's like 85% of the way there, so it's basically a Steam machine. Like, no, it had, I think, a 7600, which is directly comparable to the Steam machine. It's the part that it uses just underclocked and worse for whatever reason. So it is a better gaming PC for substantially less money. No, this thing is very overpriced. And like, just on the subject of, I guess, the alternative case, or the fact that it's probably both cases, that they're trying to make a big profit off of this and they're bad at sourcing parts. Like, you're getting into a lottery on hardware with the Steam machine, because some of them have 2 sticks of RAM. Some of them have 1 stick of RAM. So like, it's also very evident like that they don't know how to source parts, and they don't even seem to care about delivering a consistent level of performance across a device that they're selling as one SKU, which is crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what else there is to say. I mean, we've been hammering this drum hard, but again, it's not because I'm a Steam machine hater. It's because I can't take bullshit. I mean, my channel might as well be called Tom Yells at People That Say Things That Are Wrong. Like, that is what this is, and it is making us dumber. It is making the market dumber, and it's making prices go up. The defense of this product makes everything else in this community worse, and like, we just have to accept it. Stop arguing. If you buy the Steam machine, you're buying it because you want the Steam machine, and you probably would have let them bend you over no matter what the price is. Just admit it to yourself, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna let them cuck you. You get cucked by Valve. You like it. You're into it. Like, if that's what you think, like, I'm sorry. Like, just admit it. That is what you are into. Because it's not because of all these defenses. Just stop. Surrender. They're paying horrible prices for their products, and they're putting a huge profit on it, and you're into it. You like the kink. It's cool. Good for you. But enough. Stop trying to gaslight this whole community with all of these bizarre arguments, because it has been dismantled systematically. And that's why I've been so mad this week. This has to be systematically dismantled, or every other company is going to make the stupid argument you guys are making. And it's going to take more of your money. You're part of the problem if you're making stupid arguments. Just say you like the Steam machine, you want to support Valve, and you don't want to build a PC, and you're willing to have the worst price performance in gaming hardware history to do it. If admit it, okay, and you're okay with just gambling with what RAM you get with it, okay, but you have to admit that. Stop gaslighting us.
Yeah, and I guess, like, I don't think it's like a massive divergence of opinion that you and I have on like our ultimate opinion of the Steam machine, but like, this past week really has turned me into a person, has turned me into like questioning, was the Steam machine ever a good idea? Because like, I am actually more and more leaning into like, I don't think it was. Like, I'm questioning if even the best version of this, given what Valve is capable of doing seemingly, if they could have made this good ever without just taking a big loss on it. Like, that's kind of where I'm at now. And I think as a tiny launch of like 15,000 units, just take the loss to launch SteamOS.
Manuel Sarkoussis writes in, well, apparently my Steam Machine joke prediction from a while back was less rage bait and more early pricing analysis. Valve really saw 3 times the performance and said, let's do 1.5 times the price and claim double the price performance. And they went, ship it. Yep, I remember him joking about that in the Moore's Law is Dead Discord. Deadeyes117 writes in and says, I think something people often forget when looking at the Steam hardware survey is that it shows the hardware people have right now, not the hardware they are buying. A new device targeting the hardware survey average is not forward-looking at all. You should be wanting to raise that bar so that once these have saturated and show up in the Steam hardware survey, they're in line with what the future average is. It represents the hardware that people are likely looking to upgrade from, not to. I think this is a fundamental flaw in how people are defending the Steam machine.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think something like a more 90-60 level performance would be a far better target for the Steam machine than a low end card from 3 years ago or 2 years. Yeah, 3 years ago. Like, it's such a weird like baseline to try to establish with a new piece of hardware.
Mm-hmm. Frederick Thornton Borger writes in and says, in regards to Steam Machine pricing announcement, as well as your complaints about the memory supply being unsecured at the announcement, clearly it was, maybe Steam did have some initial contract laid out. Probably not with Samsung, but someone like G-Skill. And then the memory price shocks happened and they literally pulled out and said, nope, never mind. And here is your severance cost. Good luck. That would also explain the line of we couldn't find a memory supplier at any price. While I don't think $1,000 is the bare minimum or whatever, Valve has been dealing with anti-monopoly suits and releasing a console that is to some degree subsidized at this time, paid a huge target on the back. Yeah, no. And Carbon Cry wrote a big thing about how this makes no sense. Like, guys, the anti-competitive stuff is not about if they launch a console. I don't think, especially in the current U.S. administrations, I don't even think in Europe, no one's going to see them launch a console that sells a 10th at best, if they did a good job, probably 100th, as well as a PS5 and go, this is a monopoly. So PlayStation's a really successful store as well that competes directly with Valve with their own console. I don't think there'd be any monopolistic thing to this. As for the G-Skill thing, yeah, I don't know, maybe that happened, but the argument there is they need one type of RAM for a unified console, and we're already seeing they're shipping random kits. They seem to have just gone to Best Buy. They just did it 6 months late.
Yeah, they seem to have seen the bare bones, the theory for the case of making the bare bones model and said, oh, we can just do that and sell you the bare bones kits, but we'll just also source the RAM as if it's bare bones kits. Like, it's stupid as hell. Mm-hmm. And yeah, as far as like the anti-monopolistic thing that I keep seeing brought up, maybe I'm just like soliciting somebody to make a case for it because I've heard it a few times now, and I'm not saying that there aren't anti-competitive practices at Valve with them trying to undercut their competition with game sales. I'm not that's not the case I'm making.
That's a separate thing. Yeah,
I don't see what the connection to this is. Like, I'm just being honest. Somebody draw out the line and make what the connection is, because it doesn't make sense.
Give me step 2 from the underwear gnomes here.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't think it's happening. And no, like, might Valve be sued for some anti-competitive thing over here? Yeah, sure, that can happen over there. But over here, this isn't part of that. And any argument in front of a court, you're going to have to explain why this is not okay for Valve, but it's okay for PlayStation and Nintendo to have their own shop and their own console. What?
And I don't know. I question how much that whole anti-competitive practice thing has really broken out outside of like niche circles of the internet that really talk about everything being anti-competitive, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I mean, this one sounds like it was probably a bit more severe, like them just saying, well, we always have to be the best deal. Like, I get where that's anti-competitive, but I don't know if it's really broken out of like those circles that always talk about things being anti-competitive. I don't know.
But again, stop. There's no
these aren't connected though.
There's no consideration for some anti-competitive thing. That is not why the Steam machine is expensive. It is not because corporations would buy them up for office PCs. I have a whole thing I put out on Twitter that dismantles this. And there's people on Reddit that work in IT departments at major corporations that say this makes no sense. It is not because of that. It is not because of RAM prices. It is, yes, the RAM prices pushed this up from where it was supposed to be. I actually had a contact reach out to me and say they actually were kind of targeting between $500 and $600 at first. Yeah, it would have been $800 then. But then they threw a profit on top of that. It is not any of the stuff you're saying. It's not because it's small. Someone made a $700 device with a 5060 or something for which is way stronger. 3D printed it. Oh, I don't have a 3D printer in my garage. Valve could. I mean, no, like they could have found a way to mass produce something for a reasonable price if someone could 3D print it. No. The answer is Valve was really bad at this and wanted a fat profit. That's it. It's not the form factor. It's not corporations buying it up. It's not anti-competitive. The answer is staring you in the face. And for some reason, you guys will probably sleep so much better if you just let it like an ice float. Like, push it away. The Eskimos. Let the old arguments drift into the sea and freeze to death. You'll probably sleep better. Just admit it. You don't care if Valve overcharges and you want to buy it. That's it. That's what you're doing.
Yep.
Jensen Wang writes in, do you believe a large SI in the USA, if they make a $1,000 small form factor PC with a 7600 or I don't know, a 9060 or 5060 for $1,000 or less and be willing to ship it with SteamOS? Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
I could say it.
I don't know about short term, but we've already seen HP selling a desktop for $700 with like a 7600. So yes, could they do it for $1,000 with SteamOS and a Windows license? Although they pay very little for those, I believe, in bulk with Microsoft. And you know, they just find a way to do it with a 5060 or 7600 XT, 9060 XT. Yes, I mean, a French eShop is doing it, and they are doing it at a profit. So I could see it happening, and that'll be cool. And that's what I wish we could talk about. That's the problem, is they're making it look like this is a stupid idea when it's not. If the Steam machine wasn't here, we'd be talking about all these cool Lenovo and Asus and HP PCs instead.
Yeah, the one thing, because I mean, I guess the one thing I would be curious about with that going into the future though is how much would that piss off with Microsoft to see like Lenovo release a model of the...
I don't know. They won't care. They already do, basically.
Okay, never mind.
But would you? So you're saying would Microsoft be mad because they're not using Windows?
Because like, yeah,
Sure.
They have a lot of big advertising and business deals.
Well,
with
so
Microsoft.
it would probably be someone like Minis Forum or Framework.
Yeah, I know. I that seems more realistic to me than
maybe
like
HP.
Lenovo,
HP's,
but
so HP's had the balls to push back against Microsoft many times in the past and put Linux on laptops. They have done it. They've also pushed back against Intel and offered AMD when literally almost no one else would. So I still think it's plausible that this happens. But sure, I agree. Dell probably won't.
Yeah,
because given their relationship with Microsoft,
like
we'll see though.
Like, I don't know, when like a couple years ago you have that big stupid push that all these companies like bought in on like trying to put the Copilot key on keyboards. Like I don't know, there does seem to be a little bit of fealty pledging from system integrators to Microsoft.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, so I think Minis Forum will probably do it,
yeah.
And I think you could see Framework, which I hope they do. Jensen Wang writes in, will Valve manage to launch the Steam Deck 2 at closer to $1,000 or $2,000 as the entry point? You know, I don't know, but I think it's probably going to be more expensive. But again, I think, like what? I had a leak come out recently where I suspect that there's some APU I'm aware of called Zen 7 Snowmass, and I think that might be this custom APU for the Steam Deck 2. Yeah, but if that launches in like 2028 or 2029 with a custom RDNA 6 Zen 7 APU, and it's $1,000, whatever, you're getting Zen 7 and RDNA 6. Like the same arguments do not apply, right? I don't think it'd be a big deal. And I am considering how small the smaller the APU is, the less it's really a concern about the silicon cost, and it will be a small one for a handheld. So I think closer to 1,000 actually. The question is just, can they confidently build a supply chain again? Because Steam Deck might have been a fluke, and I hope it wasn't.
Yeah.
Jessie here really can't take it when she sees rabbits out in the wild. I'm not kidding. She wants to chase them so much that she starts visibly shaking while she stares at them. And honestly, I'm kind of the same when it comes to overpriced Microsoft software. I can't believe that some people, especially in these times where many component costs are inflated, would waste hundreds of dollars overpaying for Microsoft Office or Windows. And you don't have to if you go to cdkeyoffer.com. That's right, cdkeyoffer.com is a sponsor of this piece of content, and they are, I believe, the longest running main, like, large sponsor for Moore's Law is Dead, going all the way back when I lived in a different state. And that's because they provide reliable keys for Microsoft Office Professional and for Windows 11. And, you know, they also have an offering of a ton of different games that you can get on a discount as well. And if you want to support the channel, then go to cdkeyoffer.com today through the link in the description. Just clicking on that link helps. But then also get yourself these keys if you need them and save by using offer code BrokenSilicon to save 25% on all Microsoft software, and then Die Shrink to save 3% on everything else on the website. Once again, thanks to cdkeyoffer.com for sponsoring yet another, maybe what, 1,000th piece of content that they've sponsored. And thank you all for supporting a sponsor that supports Moore's Law is Dead. All right. Let us move on then here to another cheerful story with story number 3. Xbox increases pricing. Quoting from Xbox before the write-up. Effective August 1st, 2026, we will be updating prices worldwide. The price of the Xbox consoles will increase by $100 for the 512 gigabyte model and $150 for the 1 terabyte models. We will also be sunsetting our 2 terabyte model. What a nice way to not say cancel. Last October, we increased Xbox prices by $20 to $70 in the US. We hoped another price increase would not be necessary, and we have spent the last several months working with suppliers on options. Unfortunately, console storage and memory prices have increased by more than 2.5x, and we expect another doubling by the fall of 27. So we're planning ahead. We made it easier for players to buy new, though, to buy now and pay later. Oh, yay, debt. On eligible Xbox hardware purchases through the Microsoft stores, making it possible to break up your payments into predictable short-term interest-free installments. Perhaps poor component procurement is just a bad habit Gabe Newell got from his stint at Microsoft, as Xbox is also struggling with it seems. Maybe it was more important to spend insanely over the odds for Activision and Blizzard King than Carbon Cry really underlined King. He's tired of me saying Activision Blizzard, apparently. Than a couple million on competent purchases and proper component stockpiles. As a result, Xbox Series is now an even crazier proposition than before. At this point, there truly is no justification to buy one, in our opinion. Options of interest-free buy now, pay later doesn't make things much better, but I guess it's something. The interesting part, though, is the way Xbox is these days. Is what does this mean for Helix? We know Helix won't be cheap to make, and apparently Microsoft expects bad SSD and RAM prices to persist into its launch window. Perhaps we'll see full-on leasing for consoles. Asha Sharma did say gaming needs new business models to stay affordable and profitable. Also, breaking news. This is coming out from numerous developers. I haven't gotten any feedback from mine yet. It's the weekend. Who knows? But supposedly Xbox is halting funding third parties to be part of Game Pass anymore. So that's also just part of this story we need to discuss. But first, let's get to the price increases, Dan.
I mean, I don't really even know what to say about the price increases, like, that we haven't said before. Like, I think this generation in general is kind of just going out with a whimper because of the RAM shortage, and this is another victim of that. I mean, to the extent that the Xbox Series X isn't already dead, if we're being honest, like it kind of is. So I don't know, like, my recommendation would be probably don't get a Series S or Series X in this day and age anyways, and now doubly so don't get it. Like, my recommendation basically for all current gen hardware at this point is don't buy it. If you didn't get it, I think you kind of missed the boat. Wait for the PS6. And,
at least the PS5
Helix, maybe
650.
Helix will be great. Yeah.
At least the PS5 is $650, and if you want to play GTA or $600 without a disc drive, so we'll get to, it doesn't matter if you have a disc drive for GTA 6. $600 to play GTA 6. That's not the worst. Keep in mind, whenever a new console comes out, you'll probably be able to sell it still for $200. You're not out as much net on net as a lot of these other ones. I do not expect the Xbox Series consoles to hold their value nearly as well either, by the way. Just warning everybody that I don't think they'll hold value like PlayStation's will. So, for pretty obvious reasons at this point, this generation. So unless you hold it for 20 years and then it's a collector's item and you find that one guy on eBay who will do it, who will buy it from you. But on the pricing, there's not much else to say. Again, they're increasing the price. I will say this. I did see someone on Twitter that was like, what are all of you saying after the Xbox price increase after you all bash Steam Machine?
Well, it's still a better deal than the Steam Machine.
I said, look at these 3 consoles that are way cheaper than the Steam Machine and come with a controller. That's my answer to you still. Like, yes, this is still a better deal than that. From what I can tell, Sony bought a shit ton of RAM at the beginning of 2025. And that's why they didn't have to raise prices until after everybody else. And they bought a shit ton of RAM again in the middle of early 26. And they think they have enough RAM for the rest of the year. They're hoping, fingers crossed, they can make it without doing it again. It's clear Microsoft isn't buying stuff at Best Buy like Gabe is for the Steam Machine. But it is very clear Microsoft has kind of been negotiating maybe every 3 months to 3 months. And that's why we're seeing more price increases. And maybe they will reconsider that, but I kind of doubt it, actually, because at this point you almost want to just gamble prices because I feel like we're close to the peak in RAM prices. So if you're them, you almost gamble, buy enough for 6 months and then gamble it goes down after that, I think. So we'll just see what happens with them.
Yeah, I don't know. It really does just seem like Microsoft doesn't care about the Series X at this point, like that, or I should just say the Series consoles, like that. That's what it feels like. Like, they're just increasing prices because they need to make money on units sold, all else be damned. And yeah, that's how you get an $800 Xbox Series X.
Oh, wait, no, one more thing. So what do we think about Xbox halting funding third parties on Game Pass? Now, from what I've read, and I've only glanced at it, just broke. But from what I can tell is they're not saying they won't ever do it again, but they are restructuring their strategy behind the scenes. And so for now, no new third-party games coming to Game Pass.
We'll see, but I'm curious if we have another Xbox story next week. If
probably
if my the honeymoon period with Asha Sharma is over, and this is maybe who knows? Maybe she is another shitty head of Xbox. I don't know.
Well, I don't think we can evaluate that for years, Dan. But I mean, it could be she's saying Game Pass is done.
Yeah.
I think what she's weighing right now is, what do we do with Game Pass? Which me and you have been saying this. How do they put the toothpaste back in the bottle? Like, they told their fans, don't buy games. They raised the price and alienated them, have lowered the price, but now say, we're doing more exclusives, but they won't come to Game Pass right away. So what is the business model? My guess is they're just halting all spending on it until they think they know the way it goes. And I always thought, like, the third party thing, just make it a thing where, like, it has all Xbox games for substantially less money than what they're charging now. And every now and then do a PlayStation Plus like thing. Like, it should, like, they might just turn it into PlayStation Plus, but you get more of the games a year after they come out.
Or like they'll turn it into PlayStation Plus, like piecewise, like
price-wise.
Piecewise, like they slowly just like convert it into PS Plus, and like in 2029 or something. It's like, wait, this isn't really a subscription service anymore, is it?
Or this isn't just a Netflix of games. This is a bonus thing you get for games. Yeah, we'll see. I'm not actually negative until I know what they're doing. To me, this tells me she might actually be considering a radical change to the business model of Game Pass, which it clearly needs. So I guess we'll see. But I thought we had to speak some lip service to this. Dead Eyes 117 writes in, strategy for Xbox to make inroads to gaming PCs with Helix and future Windows updates. Here's my idea. The existing Windows Xbox mode actually seems pretty good at unifying all of your game libraries in a convenient way. What if they focus on being the best and making it easy for you to access all of your games from all storefronts as a means to get you using their app? That'd be a big draw for me. But now the first store you see when you boot is Xbox, and you have to deliberately open other apps to see their stores. The Xbox store becomes the low friction storefront, and it pulls up games you've already installed. But to do anything but open the game, you have to go to another storefront, and Xbox is front and center. I mean, that's kind of what I've been suggesting they might do, actually. That's pretty much what I think they're going to do with a Steam is extra hard to open part of it. We'll see, though. Jensen Wang NVIDIA is undervalued, writes in and says, now that the PS6 has not been delayed by Kepler, what do you have to say about this totally new leak that PlayStation 6 is actually going to launch on time in 2027? Especially with another user on the board explaining it doesn't make sense because of the TSMC deals. Memory price is potential dropping R&D costs and slowing PS5 sales. Why could no one have seen this sooner? Of course, this is, as usual, the sarcasm we expect out of Jensen Wang. But yeah, I mean, I actually saw this and put out a few tweets about it. Like, I said, like, it is hilarious to watch people say, wait, it doesn't make sense to delay the PS6. Years after I've been saying this thing since 2024. But what I also did is I put out another tweet that I was like, actually, one more thing. I'll just read it. One more thing about the PS6 launching in 2027. The primary reason, the actual primary reason you would not delay the PS6 is that when it comes to price performance, that is going to be the best in 2027. Let's say RAM prices drop. Great. Now we have a strong console for 600. Let's say RAM prices go up. Oh no, we have to charge 850 and not include a disk drive. Whatever, it's still going to be the best price performance in 2027. Prices go up, prices go down. That's still the biggest factor in when it's going to be the best price performance. If you wait a year or two, you're launching after RTX 60 or 70 series and it won't look as special, and the price of manufacture will not have gone down enough to warrant like being half as strong as a 70, 60 or something. So that's what it all comes down to. Price go up, price go down. Doesn't matter. The PS6 is at its best price performance, inflated or not, when its tech is the newest. Its tech is the newest in 2027. Not to mention all the contracts they've signed, but that is why, and that has never changed. And that's why me and my sources have been like, no, it's 27. Of course it is.
Yeah, and I'm gonna make at a certain point, like, something has to go really wrong for this cadence to go wrong. I think, like, I don't think I would be willing to bet money right now on this, but like, the PS7 will come out in 2034. Like, I'm calling it now.
You guys heard it here first. It's coming out in 2034. Why? Because it always comes out in 7 years. You don't need a source. Like, what are we doing? What, all of this 60 chess up our own ass? Yeah, 7 years. They plan for it years ahead. That's when it comes out.
Yeah, like, maybe it'll come out in 2036 a little early. Maybe it'll come out in 2038 for whatever reason. But like, every PS device has come out 6 to 7 years after the previous one since 1994. Well, since 2000, I guess I should say.
Mr. Tiger writes in, do you still think memory prices will come back down to normal by winter of 27? So I assume by that you mean winter 27, 28. For the PS6, every major company seems to be raising prices everywhere all at once and giving the apocalyptic messages about the future. I mean, Apple, Microsoft, Micron in a positive way with a high floor price, etc. I keep saying this. Ask me in 9 months. Ask me in March next year. I mean, I also actually put out a tweet about this. Yeah, actually, I want to talk about this one as well, because this is really quite funny. So what did I tweet here? Right. So my tweeting about like prices and like when it's going to launch, like, you know, there's some response here from Charlie on Twitter, and let me see. Right. He said that it's surprising how many gamers are Luddites. The PS3 sold for $620 in 2006. Once you factor in inflation, that's $995 in 2026. A PS6 would still sell for $1,000 in 2027. It would suck, but that can always happen. Right. So he's saying, like, if you adjust for inflation for the PS6 or PS3's launch in 2006, you get to $1,000 now. And I said, right. Also, in 2009, it was $300. If you adjust for inflation, that's $464 in today's money. And it's interesting. It is not just because of the price drop. It's because deflation happened because of a bubble popping. Where do you think my predictions are coming from, people? And then I made a point of like, I hope this like illustrates like why you guys need to stop trying to predict the future. Just a small amount of time can go from the PS6 should be $1,000 based on the PS3 to the PS6 should be $470 based on the PS3. If I cherry pick the right data point, stop assuming what happens this year happens next year. That is almost never what happens. Ask me in 9 months when the PS6, what the PS6 will cost, because so many things could happen, positive and negative. The AI bubble pops. Everyone else, like Xbox cancels Helix. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, ask me in 9 months.
The good news is that, Tom, there's no signals that a bubble is popping right now. So we can
No, there's actually quite a few that it may already be starting to. Like,
yeah.
And so like, I have to say these people that say, oh, the corporation said we should buy things because things are going to get more expensive. That's what they said in 2021. And they said Jensen Wang's like, the bubble will last till 25 or whatever he said.
Wait,
for the mining
a corporation told you to buy their shit?
Yeah, it's like, God, people, shut shills for these corporations. Like, come on. They're always going to tell you they're not making any money when they raise prices. They are making more money. And you know what? They're always going to tell you to buy now and don't wait. We'll see what happens. But I'm not saying what's going to happen is the opposite of what they say, but don't really take it. There's ulterior motives there. And they all told you the mining boom in 21 would last till like 24. It did not.
Well, no, I think you mean the Fortnite boom.
The Fortnite boom, yeah. Techno writes in, could Nintendo use a better low power yield of N1? So like a 20 SM version of what's in the, like whatever for a Switch 2 Pro. Has Nintendo made a Pro? I guess they kind of made a better APU, I believe, with like the 3DS XL and stuff like that.
Was that better?
It was. They did have a better APU. But of course, that was a much cheaper APU. My guess is Nintendo would focus on making the Switch 2 cheaper, not stronger this gen. I think it has enough to last the gen, more or less. Like, what are they really going to do? The thing that would really hold it back is like the SSD, I'm told by developers, is limited to how many total writes and reads it can do. I don't know why. So they like tell devs you can only read from the game this many times, and devs have to argue with Nintendo. I'm not making this up. Devs have to argue with Nintendo over why their engine is loading this here and why they can't maybe load it there. So I think that sort of thing is really going to be what kneecaps it, and they would probably keep that the same with any Switch 2 Pro. So I don't know. I don't really expect a Switch 2 Pro. And I'm just being honest here. Despite the modest hardware that I thought should launch a year before it did, it's 8 nanometer launching in 25 is what it was. I think it's proving it's good enough. It's running Resident Evil 9. People are saying it looks better than Series S. They're saying Cyberpunk looks better than the Series S. I think this is better than the Switch 1 was for its time. And I think they're happy with the performance. Don't you?
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but wouldn't it be more likely if they were to release a Switch 2 Pro that they would stick with the same? They would stick with the descendant of the current architecture they're using for the Switch, the current Switch 2.
Yeah, I think any Pro would be some Ampere Plus that's die shrinked or something.
Yeah,
which it kind of already is Ampere Plus Plus. I don't know. All right, let us now move on to another happy story, although I think it might be actually. With story number 4, GTA 6 pre-orders open, confirmed at $80 for the standard edition and $100 for the ultimate. Quoting from TechSpot, the question of how much Grand Theft Auto 6 would cost has finally been answered. The base game will be priced at $80 with an ultimate edition, which offers a slew of extras, will be available for $100. Rockstar Games confirmed the prices ahead of pre-orders starting at midnight tonight. So the article came out. The studio also revealed that the game will be a single-player experience at launch. So it seems there's not going to be a new GTA Online, at least right away when it launches on November 19th, my birthday. Rockstar, once again, screwed smaller developers and publishers. If there is a game that could establish this is Carbon Cry's write-up, I might not read Carbon Cry's write-up. Carbon Cry's arguing it should cost $180. I'll skip that part of it, Carbon Cry. Games are far too cheap, have been for years. The big games, ironically, are mostly fine unless they're abject failures like Concord was. It's the smaller games that need prices to catch up with inflation, not really the big companies. So, all right, Carbon Cry, I'm going to leave your rant here because we could probably do a whole die shrink on your argument, and we'd have to so that people don't think we're saying things we don't mean. They're just going to take it to mean we're shilling for them, and that's not really your point. But, look, GTA 5 is $80. Ultimate Edition is $100. I guess the one thing I'll say out of the gate is I've seen a lot of people complaining about the Ultimate Edition. What I can tell, it mostly does things the Ultimate Edition of Red Dead Redemption 2 did. Maybe a little bit more, but It's, I don't know. I'm
I
not going
mean,
to defend it. It's not the most insane thing I've seen.
yeah, I mean, what it adds? What, a few extra shops and like a special car or something?
It adds a few extra shops and a couple like smaller campaigns, like helping someone with a shop, helping someone raid a thing.
Oh yeah,
apparently Red Dead Redemption 2 already did that, and so did Red Dead Redemption 1 for the online for the PlayStation 3, which is interesting. Remember the X360 didn't get one of the missions.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't.
It's not really new.
It's not new. I mean, these types of bonuses have always irked people to some extent, and they've always bothered me a little bit too, especially in the days though of like pre-order bonuses, where like I remember, I think it was some article talking about pre-order bonuses where it's like, imagine if you went to a movie and like depending on the theater chain you went to, it's like this guy's wearing a special hat if you go to an AMC movie theater. If you go to Cinemark, there's an extra scene in it or something. Like, which one do you want to go to? That type of stuff is a little annoying. I struggle to, like, for me to decide if I'll get the $100 version or the $80 version, because like I kind of want to know, like, are these actually like worthwhile missions, and if so, why are they locking them behind the $100 thing, or why not just call this a $100 game if you want to be a $100 game?
Because that's kind of what Carbon Cry's saying. It's just making $100 then, you know.
Yeah, it's a little annoying to me, like the fact that they're not just providing stating a firm price, like we think this game is worth $100, and just say, you know, accept it. We're saying this is worth the price of entry of 1.5 games, because I don't think that's really wrong. I mean, GTA is a massive game. It's going to be possibly the game of the decade. Like, and as far as like the $80 thing goes, like, I don't really care, if I'm being honest, about it being $80 rather than $70. Going to $100, it's a bit more of a consideration, and I don't want like this to make this standard game turn into $100, because I don't think the average game is worth $100. But
I don't think it would, though. I think if Assassin's Creed tries to charge $100 at face value, it's harder than Assassin's Creed Shadows. So I don't. And I think if anyone's complaining about the price, I think the bigger story is the no physical release, which I'm not even really sure what to think of that yet, to be honest. But
I think there's a case to be made. Like, physical releases have kind of been in this weird twilight zone for a while now, where like physical releases are almost just nostalgia bait for people, because like a lot of people like having the case, when in reality, a lot of the time, like, you're not playing it off the disc anymore anyway. It's like digital releases are to some extent going the way of the dinosaur. I mean, I do think it's still to some extent worth even having a disc on the PS5 even in that reality, because like, well, it still gets you out of being on that one ecosystem, like Sony selling you everything.
It's a check on them being able to lock down everything and take things away. Yeah.
But I guess even in this weird reality where like GTA 6 is doing a quote unquote physical release where it's just giving you a digital code, I guess it's still defending that reality of physical releases.
Oh, that's true, because if you have the code, you can use it whenever. It would be locked to one device, but that means that if they make too many of those, there's still some supply and demand check there, but it's not nearly as good as a disc, because you can't resell it though, right? So that it's not the same. It is more than nothing, but it's not. Yeah, it's not. It's very.
I doubt like what we would see with on eBay sometimes, where like you could get Call of Duty Modern Warfare for like $15.
No, but you've seen like Far Cry 6 codes on eBay for
that's true
markdown prices. So there's something to it, but yeah, it's not the same. And I guess that's what I would say is I hope many studios continue to make disc-based versions of games, because I think there's still a lot of people that would like to install 50 gigabytes, even if they have to install 1 gigabyte, 10 gigabyte patch afterwards. It saves them on downloading it. You know, when they're installing it, and it is a check on, you know, whatever. But I don't know. There's a lot of games that have already been digital only, guys. A lot. Some of them fairly big, like Minecraft. You know, and I know it started indie, but it is the biggest game on earth. So, like, you know, what's your argument? I don't know. Although for all I know, there's disc-based versions of it now. But and how that would really work with how many updates it gets. But yeah, and then when it comes to the price, I mean, I blame, whatever it is, Mario Kart World on Switch 2. That was the first $80 game, everybody. And I think that is far less easy to justify for $80 as GTA 6. And to the people that say, well, I'm not paying $80, I'm going to wait. Well, here's the good news. They only launch GTA every 15 years. So if you wait 2 years to play it, it'll still be part of the conversation. And this isn't as much of an issue where I get into this debate about, well, if you got Death Stranding 2 and it came out, you're part of the conversation, or Borderlands 4, your friends are playing it at the same time. And you wait, you got it for sale, but does anyone care anymore? I know some people are mad at Borderlands 4. I'm just saying, like, a game like that, if you do like it, is the argument for why you get it right away versus wait. With GTA, I think the conversation is going to be there for a very long time. So I think the $80 price, if you want to wait, don't worry. GTA 7 won't be out by the time you buy it. So there's almost less of a worry there too, in my opinion.
Yeah, based on current trends, I mean, GTA 6... I mean, GTA 6 will probably be one of the biggest games on the PS6 going forward. So, and the one thing I guess I'll add to this that I don't know what your thoughts are on this. I think that there's, to some extent, it's just people injecting worry where I'm not sure if there should be a substantial amount yet. I would be a little worried about them trying to like charge extra, I guess, for like the GTA Online follow-up. I'd be a little pissed if they were like, this is also a separate $50 release or something like that. But,
Dan, I come from the future. It's probably going to be.
I know.
I'm just telling you, I think it will be. I think it will be its own thing. And it'll be for two reasons. One is they know they can get away with it. Two is these things are taking so long to come out that by the time GTA Online is ready, it's probably launching a year or two later anyways.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Rockstar has always followed a very weird release cadence with their games. Like the PC game, version of always comes out like 6 months to a year later. The online never is really there at launch. Like that's just,
they're probably also deciding how do they transition millions of players, more people playing GTA Online than a lot of console install bases into a new world. There might be a whole year's worth of dev time just figuring that out. Like, How are they going to do it? So who knows what the future holds for that? But I think, guys, I've been pretty outspoken. Like, guys, if you adjust for inflation, we're nowhere near where games should have been in 2006 when they were like $60 on 360, right? Like, they should be over 100 by now. And I don't know what that really means. I still think it's too much to say the standard AAA should be 100, but you could see $80 or 90. I think you just got to accept next gen, it's going to be 80, and they're not afraid to do it early because of how much inflation is happening right now. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if next gen it's 90 and it becomes last gen's 80. Some games are 70 and 60. But like you still see some games for $60. I do still think that this is going to allow, you'll see a lot of indie games still be 50, double A be $60 or $70, and then triple A be $80 or $90 next gen. And if there was a game to do it, I don't think it was Mario Kart World on the Switch too. I think it was GTA was one where it's like, are you guys really saying this isn't worth more than a normal game?
Yeah, I know.
I know you guys want me to just scream about everything, but in this case, I go, well, like the Steam machine is half the performance of something I can build for the same price. This game is worth more than most games.
Yeah, and it's just video games prices have been remarkably resistant to inflation versus like all other forms of media. Like,
and I'm not even sure why. Movie ticket prices go up? Are we sure they won't buy it? I mean, and to the people like that are lamenting the mass layoffs at Bungie, the closure of the studio that makes Hellblade 2, like mass layoffs just coming all over Microsoft apparently right now. Well, what do you think? Something's going to have to give. They're laying them off because they're not making enough money. And the reason they can afford to make all these games at Capcom and not lay off people is because they pay them like $40,000 a year. Is that what you want them to live on in the US? I don't. I don't think they'll make as good games. So this is what's going to happen. There's going to be some layoffs because a lot of games aren't working, and studios are realizing they've overspent on all of these IPs people don't want. And at the same time, the ones that do work, they're going to go, we don't want layoffs. We have to charge more. And that is just inevitable before the start of the next generation. Just remember, there will still be sales. And you will still be able to get this in a few years for like $40. And if that's not worth paying $40 early to play it now, whatever, at least this game will be relevant for a decade.
Yeah. It's just that with inflation over time, it becomes harder to make a profit off of a game. Like that's just a fact of inflation.
And again, if you're mad at inflation, don't get mad at Rockstar. Get mad at the people making policies causing inflation. So Dan, I have to ask, did you see how much money Rockstar announced they made?
Yeah.
They made $1 billion in the first hour it went up for pre-order. So yep. I don't think this is going away. I think it's going to be, if it's Elden Ring 2, $80. If it's Resident Evil 10, maybe depends 70. How big it is. Maybe 70. If it's, I don't know, Helldivers 2, 60, 70. I don't think it's going to be 80. We'll see, though. It won't be 100.
I would like to see more, like we've talked about this before, like more diversity of price points, too, in games. Because some games are worth $40. Some are probably worth $100.
All right. Let us move on finally to some more, I guess the Steam Machine was, but some truly typical hardware-centric Moore's Law is Dead discussion points. That's story number 5. This piece of content is sponsored by the Minis Forum G1 Pro Mini PC. Although in this case, like many of Minis Forum products, Mini PC is a misleading term to use here. Actually, especially misleading, because this doesn't just pack a dedicated GPU, this packs a dedicated low-profile desktop RTX 5060. Now that means that even though it should probably require some modding to put another low-profile GPU in it in the future, it's still plausible, making this one of the most upgradable mini PCs I've ever seen. It also comes with an H945HX Zen 4 16-core processor, so you get desktop-class CPU performance, the ability to have 2 NVMe SSDs, and expandability to up to 96 gigabytes of RAM, and it fits all of this into a very elegant 3.8-liter package. And I must say, by the way, despite its size, I was impressed. Even just pushing it into beast mode in terms of cooling and power supply, the thing never got loud at all. It was very quiet, very pleasant to be around while benchmarking. And when I benchmarked it, I found that, yeah, look, it's right at the heels of one of the fastest Strix Halo mini PCs I've tested, but that costs a lot more. And once you go into 1080p, which is probably where you're going to game with a 5060 anyways, this thing actually manages to not only beat Strix Halo in 1080p a bit, but it also manages to beat a laptop 5070, suggesting that if you overclock this thing and really supply it, yeah, it's a low profile GPU, but it's just as fast as any normal desktop GPU, and you are really getting, well, better than laptop 5070 performance in a really convincing package for a reasonable price. So I have to say, this one impressed me more than average, and I genuinely really recommend this product for those that just want a starter desktop, and one where actually you can upgrade the GPU conceivably in the future. So if you're interested in it, please check it out through the link in the description, and remember, if you buy it, to use offer code BROKENSILICON to save, not just in the United States, but in many different regions where this offer code works. A lot of my fans are not in the United States. Don't worry, I've got you covered as well. So please support Moore's Law is Dead by checking out the Minis Forum G1 Pro today. It's a Nova Lake 52-core SKU to draw 474 watts in PL2 mode, quoting from Tech PowerUp. Recently, Intel's next-generation Nova Lake CPU microarchitecture is shaping up to be quite power-hungry. According to the latest leak, confirmed by well-known Intel leaker Jakin, Intel's top-end overclocking-focused dual compute die Nova Lake S, a CPU with 52 cores, will feature a PL2 mode with a power level of 474 watts. This is an unprecedented number for an Intel consumer desktop platform, typically expected from a high-end HEDT design. However, since this is a 52-core design, let's not forget that 52 cores, and it can be overclocked, it does represent the newest high CPU PL2 setting that Intel will be shipping with Nova Lake S. Previous rumors suggested that the Z990 platform would be a power-hungry consumer design, but now we understand just how power-hungry it is. Reportedly, Intel referenced Z990 motherboard designs, which it provides to partners like Asus, MSI, Gigabyte, and ASRock, and others, now includes the possibility of 3 8-pin CPU power connectors, again, for a reference design. maybe 6 for the craziest one. This is an intriguing design choice considering that most enthusiast boards typically ship with 2 8-pin AEPS CPU connectors. So 3 8-pin connectors are mainly intended for the highest and overclocking designs rather than being required to run the dual compute die, though. Motherboards equipped with either 2 or 3 EPS connectors are still expected to support Intel's high-end 44-core and 52-core processors. I say 44 because he's seen some of the rumor, meaning that only the overclocking focused models will feature the 3 connectors for additional overclocking headroom. So yeah, I mean, I don't actually have a lot to say about this. I know I railed against Raptor Lake at whatever it was, like getting to like 400 or 500 watts if you pushed it. Yeah, that's a 24 cores. This is 52. And I think I've been suggesting that I'm hearing they will have HEDT-like platform options. Other people like Jake have been leaking this, I think, for a long time now. I mean, look, guys, Nova Lake, if you want the 8 big plus, I guess, 16 plus 4 LP core model i7 that I'm hearing, or that I've leaked and shown in diagrams actually, is coming. Yes, this model will probably be fine in a typical motherboard, but if you want to power the model that goes up to Threadripper core counts, you might need a lot of power. And these dies are going to be big too, like big. This is like LGA, I think it is 1954, largest LGA they're launching. You are getting into HEDT LGA sizes here. So I don't have much to say. I just let me know, can we cool it? And does it break? Assuming it doesn't break and you can cool it, I think the top model might pull 350 watts or more if you push it 500. And I think the standard model will still probably be 200 watts or something.
Yeah, I mean, if this is just like the power usage of like a quasi HEDT CPU at the top of their lineup, or like there's some weird fusion of their HEDT and consumer desktops going on at Intel, yeah, that's fine. I get a little scared seeing Intel and power usage, obviously, but maybe that's just me being overly reactive because it's not like you say, everything is going to be a 52 core power hungry HEDT like a CPU.
All right. Let us now then, but so we agree. Like,
yeah,
I don't really read into this as being horrible yet until we know more information.
Yeah.
Okay. Let us move on then to story number 6. AMD confirmed to still be targeting 7 gigahertz for Zen 6, and RDNA 5 confirmed to, like Helix, like PS6, still be launching in 2027.
What?
Recently, we talked about Zen 6 reaching 6.6 gigahertz at least in a leak, and some took it as backtracking from a now year-old leak that 7 gigahertz was the target AMD wants to hit with Zen 6. It is not. It's just that we know that 6.6 gigahertz is near certain. AMD still, though, wants to go to 7 gigahertz and still thinks that they're going to get there as of this reporting, or at least as of a week ago. Likely only with a few top SKUs, but still. And this was put out in a leak that had another update as well, that I am hearing from AMD's partners that they were told to expect RDNA 5 desktop cards by mid-2027, paving the way for a launch later that year at the latest. So again, for all the doomers who think nothing will come out until 2028, 9, or 30, no, new GPUs are not going to come out that late from AMD. And don't rush out to buy a 5090 for $5,000 just because you don't want to wait 3 years. Look at what we already know about RDNA 5. Take into account that it is coming in less, and maybe a year from now, if not less than 2 years from now, and then make a rational decision. So, yeah, I mean, this was kind of a video I threw together. It wasn't a ton to expand on, but I thought it was still a very big deal that, like, you know, without, let me...
The world, I mean, I don't know. I almost think it's just the main point is... markets have ebbs and flows to them. This sky isn't falling. This bubble too will crash, will pop, Tom.
And these companies are seemingly planning like it is going to crash. They all seem to know it is, or they're not adjusting around it. So, yeah, this is starting to feel very much like 2021, isn't it? Although, by the way, I'd much rather build a PC this year than in 2021. Go look at everything was inflated.
Everything sucked.
Like it has been worse. And I remember in mid 2021 and everyone just, and I know it got worse. I was at the California game shows then. I remember a line around the block to Silver Knight PC's booth. They were selling 3070 Ti's for $800. And there was a line around the block because it wasn't $1,000. I know. And that was, I believe, August of that year when I was there in Raleigh. Like, so like, I know how bad that looked in 21. And yet, 1 year later, 4090, not for $3,000, 1,600, and I was able to get one. A lot of people were able to get one. 7900 XTX launches for $1,000, and
it's relatively easy to get for like $930. Not that much.
Well, it was hard to get that one for a while. The 7900 XT was done. That was easier to get.
Right.
Then they went down like a year later. But it's like, and yet these things were substantially in a substantially better place than just a year before. 27 is not 26. And they were all saying the same things in 2021. They were all saying in 2021 that the prices would stay high until 23, and they didn't. Not saying, prior performance does not guarantee future, but with that disclaimer, this has happened before, and I just, everything I'm seeing behind the scenes is that AMD is full steam ahead, PlayStation's full steam ahead, and they're planning like these are going to be normal product launches. And also, just throwing it out again, Zen 6 is still targeting 7 gigahertz. Everything they're working on behind the scenes is around validating 7 gigahertz chips. There's nothing that's like, we back down. Might they not get it? Might they only hit 6.7 gigahertz? Yeah, they could, but like, stop assuming I'm backtracking. It's gonna be like 6.2, because that's looking pretty good as well.
Yeah.
All right. Boomsticka writes in and says, very similar to your friend Brock, I bought into the AM5 platform with a 7700X in 2022 and have been cruising along happily since then. I do have the itch, though, to tear my build apart and do some minor upgrading. If it were your money, would you go for Zen 6 or go for Zen 7? Man, I think it just depends on when your games are showing their age. 77, what games do you play? Like, are you playing Age of Empires, which actually can kind of get a little stressed, like in the frame rate department, very single core bottleneck game. Like, then, and like, where will prices be? Like, does Zen 6 launch? And because Noble Lake's good, the 10800 X3D is like a 6.57 gigahertz mega extra cache chip that over doubles your performance in games, and it's $500 with 12 cores, maybe. I mean, I don't know, man. You could probably sell your old CPU for $150 and then buy this for $500 and massively increase your performance. Go for it. But if you don't need it now, I just think things get cheaper and better over time. I think 27 through 28 is going to be a real upgrade cycle for a lot of. Through 29 is going to be a real upgrade cycle. I don't think you're going to want to rush unless you absolutely need it. But they're both going to be, I believe, very big uplifts.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, my inclination is if you have a 7700X, I don't know. It's probably not worth upgrading to anything that's on the market right now in most cases, unless, like, I don't know, you're doing high refresh rate, like 1080p gaming with it or something like that. Maybe then it's worth it. But or like you said, I suppose like a game like Age of Empires, but that's not that well optimized for CPU usage. But
not a game where you really need it to be at 240 hertz at all times.
Exactly. Like you can run Age of Empires 4 at 60 hertz and be fine anyways. So, I mean, I don't know. 7700X, my inclination would be to say wait for the next gen. But
wait for Zen 7.
Yeah.
Unless you're being slowed down, wait for Zen 7. If not, Zen 6 will be very fast. It almost just comes down to, is it a good market when you really want to? And just remember too, like, if this is a hobby, like, look, let's say you get a 10800 X3D for $500. Okay, and then you get Zen 7 and it has 4 more cores and even more cache, and that's like $550. Then you sell your old chip for $300. I don't know, it was $250 to have the best performance both years. You don't need to do it. And you also sold your 7700X as well. So really, what the price difference is, like $150 to always have the best for 3 years.
Yeah,
if it's a hobby, go for it. But like, don't. It keeps coming back to upgrade when you need it. And just remember, both Zen 6 will be like Zen 2, Zen 7 will be like Zen 3, right? Like, two big ones in a row. If you had Zen 1 and you're like, ooh, do I get Zen 2 or Zen 3? It's like, oh, Zen 2 is going to be really good. But if you don't need it, Zen, although even back then, Zen 1 was so much slower than compared to now that it's really not the same. But
I mean, that is also a good point that maybe people need to accept about what a hobby is. Like, yeah, are you just like wanting something to tinker with? You can just spend money to tinker with something if you want to.
and just admit that's why you're buying it. Again, with the Steam Machine, I'm buying the Steam Machine because I think the Steam Machine's cool. That's why you're buying it.
Yeah,
that's why. And sometimes that's okay. Just don't gaslight us. Random Australian writes in and says, if N1X machines don't arrive until late this year, it will be late, I think October, or early next year, won't Noble Lake and Zen 6 end up running rings around them anyways? Yes. And in the Windows on ARM bugs and compatibility issues that will likely still exist, it almost feels like the project should stay in development, kind of like how long the Switch 2 took to eventually launch. Well, I don't know that's why the Switch 2. I think that's because Nintendo gonna Nintendo. But I mean, look, if is your question, will Zen 6 and Nova Lake have substantially faster CPU performance than N1X, a chip that seems to kind of tie Strix Halo in multi-thread? Yeah, they will be faster, like a lot faster. And that's why NVIDIA is probably trying to rush it out this year, because they know this thing has like 3 months where it will make any sense. Archibald Moonlight Graham writes in and says, is AMD going to release a 90 series Halo product with RDNA 5 as in a 190 or something to that effect? At least what's leaked so far is they had plans as of a year ago to do so. We'll see. I would suggest probably eventually, yes, if not right away. Techno writes in, so if I'm right in saying this, is this roughly what the next 3 generations are going to look like? RDNA 5 launches on 3 nanometer, and then NVIDIA skips the gen, does a big Blackwell super refresh. 2029 through 2031, RDNA 6 launches with this. So I don't know. Oh, and then you're saying that NVIDIA launches next to it with its Intel 14A or whatever they end up using, competitor. I mean, yeah, maybe. Look, I've been told Super's launching. Yeah, so it's expected to launch at the very end of this year or at CES next year. That's what I leaked a month or something ago. And I don't know. That's what it looks like. So if RDNA 5 is coming by mid next year, certainly by like fall next year, and the Super Series is launching beginning of next year, you agreed. And it kind of seems like they intend Super to complete with RDNA 5. Yeah. And 8 is when the 60 series comes out. So yeah, Techno, that's at least right now, that's kind of what it seems like. Again, where's all the leaks? Where's partners telling me that the 60 series is launching this fall or even next summer? Where's Copai saying, I have the specs of the 6090? We don't see it.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a year out is when you really
certainly
start
6
to
months.
see stuff. Yeah.
So there still could be something next year. But then if I know Super is launching, I find it, maybe they'll launch Super right before it, I guess, but I don't know if they would. I mean, when did the Super series for the 20 series came out? I believe in 2019 to compete with the 5700 XT. AMD just had a full node better, and they only competed in the mid-range at that time, though. And then a year later, Ampere came out. So it's usually at least a year between the Super launch and the next gen. Mm-hmm. Deuce Niner writes in, I recall from an early RDNA 5 leak that AMD chose to go with LPDDR5X. Could this prove to be a masterstroke for next gen? Let me back up. He says, this looked like it would be a masterstroke for next gen, but now that it seems that LPDDR5X prices are increasing even worse than GDDR7, what does this mean for RDNA 5, PS6, and Helix? Well, it means a few things. Number one, for Helix, it means nothing because that uses GDDR7. For PS6, that means nothing. For the handheld for PS6, yeah, that could be an issue, but it's over a year from now. We don't know what the next issue will be and where prices will be for individual types of RAM. I think what that would mean is it will be harder to make the PS6 handheld more of a budget option if they are still elevated when that happens. We don't know if it will. For RDNA 5, this is actually something I believe me and you covered recently. Do you remember? Was it in the last die shrink, or not the last die shrink, but like, I'm trying to remember. Like, I don't remember if it was our How AI Ends die shrink or what it is, but I think in some recent piece of content, me and you agreed, Dan, that if LPDDR5X prices stay high, what you're probably going to see with RDNA 5 is they launch the Medusa Halo and laptops and whatever for back to school next year. You have, because they will be able to put a Medusa Halo or Medusa Halo Mini APU, which uses the same chiplets as low-end RDNA 5 for desktop. They'll be able to put those in $3,000 laptops. So they're going to say, yeah, that's where that's going first if RAM is expensive. And then kind of like the 7800 XT came out way after the 7900 XTX, I think they delay the low-end RDNA 5 launch, until 2028 when those prices have come down. But that's it. Like they launch on laptop where they can charge more. They sell their AI cards. Markets crash. Once it gets normal, that's when they bring out the low-end LPDDR5X graphics cards for gaming. But that's just what that would do. And I don't know. It'd screw over Sony's handheld, but ultimately, again, it's like, okay, add $100 to the cost or something at worst.
Yeah, but,
so 600 or 700 instead of 500 or 600.
Yeah, and the advantage of the handheld, that at least from Sony's perspective, I think is like it's a bit harder to do like apples to apples comparisons with dedicated or with like console hardware to handheld hardware. So if it's like a little, relatively speaking, overpriced, maybe it won't look like that, stick out like that much of a sore thumb, because like, yeah, the RAM prices kind of just suck right now, so we have to sell this for like 50 to $100 higher than what we wanted to. But
all righty, that's all the main stories. Let us now move on to the wrap up. These are, of course, the stories that deserve a mention, but not necessarily a full 5 to 15 minute conversation. So yeah, I didn't make this a story. I just didn't think it needed to be, but it was a leak from my episode with Mystic Ryan, which very good episode. He's got a huge following. If you're a fan of his, check out The Last Broken Silicon. But I put out another one of these tidbits of documents that I've had for the PlayStation 6 for a while that directly shows that VFI is needed for console and low end. It says there, or low or like mid-range GPU performance, basically. VFI is, I think, something frame rate interpolation. So the Sony is apparently, at least as of a couple of years ago, they were considering frame gen for PS6. I just don't know what the final decision was. So far, we haven't seen any evidence of it on PS5 Pro, though. So I think that still tells you, I guess we don't know, but that doesn't tell me they're for sure going gung-ho. And also, it directly says consoles are cost constrained. They cannot be overpriced, and that they're targeting lower power. So again, I think this is worth pointing out because actually, as of us recording this, everyone's freaking out about PlayStation 6 potential pricing. And I'm telling you guys, in their documents, unlike Valve, they're talking, well, let's not compare it to Valve. It's just not the same situation. They're directly saying we need to keep costs under control. So,
oh yeah, of course. Like this is a thing that like people buy and keep for like 6 to 10 years and buy things on it the whole time. Like, yeah, a little bit of upfront loss is going to pay dividends.
Also, I thought this was actually interesting. A lot of people were like hyperventilating about one thing here, one thing there. But the PlayStation CEO did an interview. And the thing that I thought was most interesting, he was asked, how will game consoles change? And he said, well, the idea, let me see. What is it here? I think I almost have the correct quote. Yeah, he says, the idea that you need a game console to play the game does not change. On top of it, the reason why we make a game machine is because I think it is important to play the game. You turn it on, power as an experience. From this point of view, I would like to continue to provide our own game consoles. Now, this is PlayStation directly saying they think intrinsic to the experience is games built for a device that you press a button on and it turns on. So that's Sony saying, yes, we plan to do PS7 and PS8 and PS9, and we think this business model is never going to change. What he did say will change is how you can use the screen. And this is him, I believe, directly hinting at handhelds.
Yeah.
And he said that's why we're making PlayStation branded monitors. We don't think you need to use a TV. You can use a monitor, a tablet connected. You need the device, but there's many different ways you might use a screen. So I thought that was interesting, and I actually take heart. And I like the business model of we own the console, we own the games, we're done. I don't need I don't need the streaming crap. Stadia did not work. I have here Valve expanding SteamOS support. We basically already talked about that, but again, it is very good. I like that SteamOS is being expanded. I just wish we could talk about that instead of the Steam machine.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to see a legitimate competitor to Windows as like a real gaming platform. And I don't think SteamOS is quite there yet, but I hope it gets there.
Bungie head steps down. Yeah, I don't know how much I have to say about this, but Bungie's kind of getting gutted.
Yeah, I'm worried about Bungie. Yeah.
Again, though, there will be people that's like they should have never been bought by PlayStation. It's like maybe, but I don't know. They're the ones mismanaging their games. Sony's not making them.
Yeah, that's certainly what it seems
and
like.
You are like, oh, you're defending Sony, and it's like, I don't know. Microsoft's laying off a lot of people. It just seems like it's a shitty time to be a game dev.
Yeah,
like it just sucks. I don't. And who is to blame it? Although I will say this, someone pointed this out on Twitter. that Sony's headcount for their studios has actually grown year over year. So people are trying to group PlayStation into the same basket as Xbox. Sony's actually hiring more developers. They're just thinking some aren't doing as well. Microsoft's just killing the studios. I don't know why this is here. I guess I put this here late at night because I was excited. But Kojima showed off OD, his not PT successor, that a lot of people are saying has gameplay mechanics they can't believe he was crazy enough to try. And it has a way of making the game fun and scary, even if you suck at the game. So I don't know. Expect some really experimental stuff like PT.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for OD. I don't know what the hell it's going to be, but
nobody ever does with
nobody
Kojima.
knows with Kojima. I mean, I remember everybody was confused about Death Stranding, what it was when it first came out. But
yeah, I was confused. A whales. Do you remember Kojima like wore a cast for a week?
Oh yeah, he's so weird.
He wore a cast or whatever, or at least a full day, and went around Tokyo or something, and people were pushing him, and then he got filmed and the news picked up, and he did it just so everyone would be like, what happened to Kojima? And then they took off his cast on stage, and it's like the theme of Death Stranding has to do with it's like this guy's out of his mind. But it did promote the game, so I don't know. I think we could use more eccentric creative people that are eccentric in the fun way, not the abusing people way. And they're going to wear a cast for a day or a week, whatever it was, to promote a game.
He's got fun eccentric in droves. So I will. That was always will always be one of like the most fun periods of like game speculation for a release was Metal Gear Solid 5. Like people figuring out all of the weird shit that was going on with what was it? Was it like Project Moby Dick or something? Where people were like, I'm pretty sure this is Metal Gear Solid 5. That was a fun announcement.
All right, that's right. It was for MGS 5. Let me see. Right, which had a lot of Death Stranding themes. You could see there was a connection there. Yeah, I mean, like, I'll just have some pictures on screen. He wore bandages for a while to promote it, not a cast. It was for MGS 5. God, what a weirdo. But in a good way. But we love him. All right. And then the final one is, we've already covered this, but Hardware Unboxed did a proper review of the B70 for gaming. Loses to the 9060 XT by like 5% in 1080p. Wins by 1% in 4K and 1440p. So I don't know. I mean, look, guys, this is why Intel didn't bother with Big Battle Mage in gaming. It's because it sucks. Like, this thing has a 256-bit bus, and it's losing to a 128-bit bus on the same node, using more power with a die 50% bigger or something. It's just incredible. So, I don't know. Again, I'm only bringing this up because we kind of had to scrounge when we first covered it for reviews because everyone just ignored it. But Hardware Unboxed looked at this. It's like, this thing wouldn't have saved anything. They would have had to sell this for $500, and it wouldn't have done anything the 9060 XT can't do, except in compute. But whatever. I mean,
yeah.
Harbor probably wanted to include this. He added this one.
There's no real reason to be excited about Intel graphics cards.
Dead Eyes 117 writes in, just watched Gamers Nexus coverage of the Bolt GPU in development. I'll believe it when I see it. They have a very long and very difficult road ahead, and it'll be a moderate miracle if they actually make it into the market in a meaningful mainstream way. But man, is the design philosophy interesting. There's so much that they are doing unconventionally compared to the big three. I'd love to hear your general thoughts about the design, especially things like the PCIe interconnect, expandable memory, and the choices they're making with the architecture to accommodate it. The wild claims about path tracing efficiency, maybe they could surprise us there. It sounds like their design is making by far the best use of chiplets compared to the competition. Looking forward to your coverage of this immensely. Even if it is unlikely to amount to anything, it's at least going to be popcorn worthy to see how it unfolds. And for sakes, it's something different, and it's good news. It's good news if it's something good. I think ARC just raised prices. I think ARC made Radeon look good. I don't think it helped the market, like literally at all. And I don't think Steam Machine is raising prices. Steam Machine is going to make it easier for PlayStation to charge more. So I just feel like we've been burned so many times. I mean, what is it? The joke me and you make is that this new company making GPUs, especially if it's a Chinese one, is like, oh, Stanford tests battery 1,000 times higher capacity. And it's like, yeah, it's not really going to happen anytime soon. I feel like I've seen this so many times with GPU companies, especially out of China. I mean, This looks a little different. This looks interesting, but I am already, I already forgot what I said about the Super Series just a month ago because of how much crap I have to cover for this channel. I will cover this if it seems real to me. If I have contacts telling me, hey, we're preparing a launch, it's going to be at Micro Center. Until then, I don't know what to expect. I mean, Intel couldn't do this, and they're a huge company.
Yeah, I mean, I have no expectations for what the Bolt will be, other than like looking at it. I think there's some cool novelty factors to it, so hopefully it pans out for that reason alone.
Yeah, we'll see. I will say this though: if it turns out well, man, will I have questions for Intel, because that will again tell you it was their leadership, it was how the company works. That's why it failed, and it's kind of like your argument for like Valve and hardware. Like, Intel, stop trying to do new things until you fix how your company operates. Because if Bolt does this better than Arc, then Intel shouldn't try anything new until they rebuild the whole company from the ground up. But we'll see. Let me look at this up. Bolt GPU release date. Like, is there any release date out there? Or all right, looks like they want to launch it end of 27 or 2028. So who knows? Maybe we'll be reviewing Bolt graphics cards.
You know, it'll probably be a main story at some point. We'll see.
It seems like it might be. I want it to succeed. I can't let myself get emotionally invested in this stuff anymore after being burned by so many of these things. They're, going to save the market with a third competitor. All right, Dan, it's going to do it for the episode. I am very tired. Do you have any final words?
No, I don't think so, Tom.
All right. Well, I think that everybody should make sure that they subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below, hype the video if you're on mobile, and also check out the Moore's Law is Dead Patreon. We just released like an hour and a half breakdown of different ways the Steam Machine could have launched, with dozens of submissions from the community. Some of them had really interesting creative ideas, none of them which Valve decided to do. And that's at the $1 tier. You get access to an essential collection at that tier. You can ask us questions at that tier. And then at higher tiers, you get access to the Discord, questions on everything, even sometimes live streams at the proper tier, early ad-free episodes of Broken Silicon, and a catalog of hundreds of die shrinks. We cannot do this without our patrons supporting us. So please, whatever you have, doesn't need to be a lot, $1, $2, whatever you can do, as long as the plurality, or hopefully eventually the majority of our funding comes from Patreon. It makes it much easier for us to work diligently, worry less about sponsors, and it really does keep us honest, because if people are like, well, why is he willing to? He says, I don't care. I'm being paid to just say what I think, and therefore there's nothing clouding our judgment, Dan.
Yeah.
But consider supporting us there. And then as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and have a good week, everybody.
Goodbye.
This podcast was brought to you by the YouTube channel and website Moore's Law is Dead. Moore's Law is Dead and Broken Silicon are trademarked by me, the creator, Tom. However, Moore's Law is Dead is much more than just one man. It is a team, with Broken Silicon co-hosted by my brother Dan, audio editing by Gerard Cortez, renders done by the industrial designer Jean-Philippe Clermont, and special assistance also provided by Carbon Cry and Carrie No Sugata. Find all of our information at www.mooreslawsdead.com. On the About Support page, in the event you want to hire me for consulting work, or hire Gerard for audio work, Jean-Philippe for industrial design work, or are interested in working with Carbon Cry or Carrie No Sugata as well, you can find all of our information there. You can also find our long-term sponsors there and show them some love for helping make this work possible. Additionally, if you are a fan and would like to mail Moore's Law is Dead some love in a letter or with hardware donations, please mail parcels to Moore's Law is Dead, P.O. Box 60632 in Nashville, Tennessee 37206. And speaking of fans, patrons are what makes Moore's Law is Dead content possible. Every month, and every day actually, depending on the person, me, Gerard, Dan, Jean-Philippe, and more are working tirelessly to provide a steady stream of entertaining content and investigative journalism that aims to be as independent as possible from outside influence. Only direct funding from fans can make this possible in the modern era. And so if you have any extra money every month, even just $1 or two, consider supporting us directly on Patreon. All members of the Moore's Law is Dead Patreon, even down to the $1.28 128-bit tier, get access to a catalog of dozens of essential Die Shrink episodes and the ability to ask guest questions ahead of Broken Silicon recordings. Additionally, higher tiers get access to the entire catalog of hundreds of episodes of Die Shrinks, and these include exclusive interviews with game devs and other guests, behind-the-scenes looks at Moore's Law is Dead leaks, and more niche coverage of subjects that really only the biggest gaming dorks like me and you would care about. They would not profit on YouTube, but they don't have to profit on Patreon. And so if you're interested in that, you can get access to all of that stuff and even more at higher tiers, like ad-free episodes of Broken Silicon, the ability to ask free questions in Loose Ends live streams ahead of recordings, thanks in the credits of videos and podcasts, and access to the Discord with thousands of fans there who would love to discuss gaming hardware with you. I am one of them. And hey, if you cannot afford to support us, please just share Moore's Law is Dead videos and podcasts with friends and family and on social media and Reddit, and give Broken Silicon a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app. All of that stuff does help a ton as well. But as I said, this podcast would not be possible without its patrons directly providing predictable and reliable support every month. And so now is the time to give a personal thanks to the greatest of the fans. The following supporters are at the 1024-bit HBM3 or higher supporter levels:
Brad Medlin, Z-Jits, Daniel D, Nicholas Buckner, Deke, Aaron Close, Jen Rauner, MJB1, Daniel High, GZ Ziggy, Jerem Ferreira, Malcolm Lev, Jensen Wang, Sarcastro, Chris Rich, Evan Dingle, Hal Buma, Shredbird, Sammy Malas, Chrysanthenos, Matthew Cassels, Jonathan, Tommy, Jake223, Jake Martin, Amiable Chief, Slicky, Win Wang, I Should, Gamers Unite, Ian Clifford, Meat and Pork, Tim Robb, Travis Gooding, Dan M, 1988, Zutsu Taylor, Mads, Greg, Michael McGee, Stephen Coates, Mark Mitchell, James Anderson, Mark Raidmaker, Salty Internet Pirate, Henry Zhang, Wesley Sager, Cameron, Michelle Pell, Hexa Puma, Teak Autumn, The Forbidden Juice, Little Germany, Windstar, James I. Raider, Milton, Brett Jones, Chuck Glidden, Stephen Dick, McDaffy, John Swin, Justin Bustle, Austin Haggerty, Joe Foot, Brian Wright, Brian Scanlon, Hardland, Slushpaw, Jansen Angima, RV Racer, Bing Bong 3, Solarized 80, Keekum, Sprutnik, Smash Axley, Brian P, Cornstar 671, Penta Winta, Omega Doge, Huger, Ender Kiwi, Dominic Passeri, John Wick Boomstick, Mr. Tiger, Penguins Love AI, Porcelain Oats, AI Soldier 789, Karim El Masri, Fred Berger, Rahil Chi Bowles, Manolis Radkusas, Kevin Kuntz, Jonathan Harris, Bespoke EP, Kainush Kagani, Johnny Trans, Zabar, Ahmed, Arkeo, RK0, Hunter Temple, Henry Day, Dudester, John Tiberius, Mirika, OMG Clover, Roadkill Dog, Serve, Chilled, and of course, thank you to Sahara for the music.